I'm Max. I'm the CTO of Domaine. Hands up if you've heard of an agency called Domaine. Okay, cool. Decent amount of people. You guys, we're here. So I've been on the Domaine story for about 6 years. When I started, the tech team was about 8 people. Now the tech team is about 120, and our agency size is about 240. So over the last 6 years, we've done a lot of growth. And this is really that story. This is not a story about trying to sell you on Domaine. This is really us opening up our book. And if you are anticipating a period of scale, trying to give you some pointers so that you can come into this with eyes wide open. So, it works, cool. So this is for anybody that's scaling any company. It's going to be a little bit more focused on agencies. It's also for anybody that is anticipating or thinking about a large M&A activity. We doubled in size 20 months ago when we merged 2 companies together. So this is really the story of us post our merge. Yes, we merged class everyone. And also, I designed this. This wasn't my design team, so I had some fun. I was also staying with the in-laws, so I had some extra time. We're going to go through an intro. We're going to go through more of the transition phase, and then we're going to move over to the building phase. I built a section called Play, Plan, or Pivot, which is what would we replay, what would we kind of plan a little differently, and what were a couple of things that we would pivot from and do a little fundamentally differently. And then one slide on looking ahead. So 20 slides, 20 minutes, 20 months. It's ambitious. I think we can do it. I have time myself, but things are always different when you do it on stage. But we started our merge in September 2023, and we're May 2025. And if my math is mathing, I think that is 20 months, but who knows? And just a little bit of a story. So Domaine is the culmination of 2 agencies. One was Half Helix, one was Tomorrow Agency. And there was a point where we really thought it was better to come together for 2 reasons. One of them was strategically, the Shopify Plus ecosystem was going through a period of consolidation, and we felt like instead of going neck and neck on certain deals, it made more sense to come together. So we like to use the term former rivals and a merger of equals. We were also about the same size. At that time, about 80 people on either side, hence the equals. And the other side is we didn't want to just merge with anybody. We think that we had some synergy in both our vision, and since we were going neck and neck on deals, we had brands going between the 2 of us as well. We had a lot of deep respect for each other's work. And Half Helix kind of grew up with Shopify Plus. We were known for, I want to say, executionary excellence. I was on the Half Helix side. And bravery, and the Tomorrow Agency was really known for an enterprise level process and rigor with a lot of experience in other ecosystems like Salesforce, Commerce Cloud. And again, I designed this myself, so you can tell. But a little bit about me. I grew up in Australia, come from a small country town called Robertson with 1,500 people. I fell into coding rather than coming from a computer science background. I've been in the agency space for about 15 years, and I've been around the Shopify ecosystem for about 10 years. My little town is where they filmed Babe, which is the movie about the pig, if anybody knows. It was actually filmed 30 years ago to this year. And we have this thing called a big potato. It's probably the only big potato in the entire world, and it's particularly the only big potato in the world now painted like a pig. It usually looks like a poop, so it's better. All right, we're going to focus on the transition. So I wanted to put this slide in just to break down how we thought about going through the event. And I put on the y-axis the leadership intensity to kind of show that leadership intensity throughout this period. It kind of ebbs in, and then it ebbs out. We broke it up into a synergy phase, which is about 3 months, and I'll go into that in a second. Then we focused on a transition phase, which took about 7 months, and then the stabilization phase, which took about 9 months. I kind of say that the transition is a culmination of synergy and transition, and stabilization is what we'll call a building later. And I put a couple of events here as well, some milestones. We hired a head of people earlier on. It didn't quite work out, and that was a major bummer because it meant that through this transition, a lot of the other executives and senior leaderships had to take a lot of the emotional brunt work of going through this period. And it happened before we did the HR normalization, which is like a big thing. And then about halfway through, we took everyone to Tulum. That was a lot of fun. One of the other photos was us in Tulum. But it was important for a couple of reasons. First off, the placement of it allowed us to use that as a milestone to say, look, when it weren't these two agencies before, we are fundamentally this agency going forward. And that's really important to do. The other thing is because it happened in the transition where we're kind of merging everything together, it allows us to tackle some of the more complex parts of the transition in person. But the most important thing is that we're getting two people to come together. They don't know each other. And so this is a way to build that interpersonal trust. We are a remote first company. And so these milestones are super important. Oh, and the other thing is we were doing client work through this entire period. So that's like just a little gray line there, but it's really important. And the other thing is, there's a lot of departments. We have a lot of departments, and every department's going to feel it a little differently. So, and it's not to do with the size of the department. It's actually to do with the type of change. And so the bigger, even if you have a bigger department, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a worse or harder time. It's more about what is the nature of the change? Is that a superficial process change? Is there harmony at the start? Or is something cutting deeper? Is it a fundamental or philosophical shift that you're going to need to coach and navigate the team through? So transitions are not just operational, they are deeply emotional. And in order to get through that, I would say the most important thing is to go through a really structured synergy phase. So this was a point where we had a look at everything that was the same between Tomorrow and Half Helix in a harmony, and it allowed us to prioritize some of the bigger shifts and really plan them against a timeline. I've got some lessons learned there, but it allows you to zero in, focus on the right things. Expect HR normalization to hit hardest. This is where a lot of the motion is. So anything with benefits, with policies, with compensation. We had to form what the 40-hour working week looked like. These are all really important things to be careful about and anticipate a bit more, maybe longer timelines there. We focused on our marketing. I think we did a really good job on our marketing, but also at an equal amount of time building that energy internally as well. The team is going through a lot of volatility, and it's important to build in a mechanism to keep everybody excitement. The excitement is real. There's a lot of opportunity there, but also change can be daunting. And a lot can fall onto the heads of executives, and so making sure that you understand who the leaders are that can really coach you through this change. I'm thinking about this concept called change agents or transition agents. Think about people that have a lot of emotional EQ, and also calm voices. So, someone to kind of coach, de-escalate, move through, kind of identify early on, and allow everyone to kind of have a strategic plan together. I wanted to put this slide here to just represent how many little things come together to do a merge. Of course, a merge is a little different to other parts of M&A, but it's important to see. So, we had to do open heart surgery on our Git deployments, on how we report up to clients, on every tool. And it's not just about merging tools, it's thinking about access, double the size. It's navigating, do you use Notion for your knowledge base? Do you use Confluence? Some of these tools can have a really deep cultural side of things. It can be culturally different to use Notion versus Confluence internally. IT and security, we went through a major IT security overhaul. We had to look at our code best practices, how we were using Jira. And as you can see this, you can kind of understand how important it is to have documentation. Synergy worked a lot better when we could paste in or copy in documents that represented what the differences are. And then a lot of that work can be done asynchronously rather than needing workshop after workshop to figure out what the process was. And a few takeaways. So first off, if you're thinking about growth, plan for that maturity now. Think about the little steps that you can do to be able to set the company up. We had one side of the merge that was a little bit more, I'd say, like lifestyle focused in their messaging and also some of their perks. And as you're maturing and you're a 240-person team, some of those lifestyle perks are not as sustainable as they are as a smaller organization. And same goes for like 40-hour weeks and what have you. You'll be kidding yourself if you think that this amount of open heart surgery is not going to create quality issues for your clients. I think there was a point where we maybe kid ourselves a little bit, to be honest. But if you can plan for that and understand there's going to be hiccups, it's important. And say one word of advice is if something is not going exactly to plan, don't just immediately chalk that up to an individual team member's performance. Often, if you drill down the layers, it's about something else that could be completely different something that you've changed at the transition, you've maybe lost sight of another operating procedure. A lot of it came down to not having enough time, so like changing the way that we estimate, also the way that we map out definition of done and set up our tickets to come together for the work. And watch out for silos. So our synergy is really focused on allowing function, so function engineering, design, to be able to make decisions in a silo, so we can run quickly. But what that meant is that some of our cross-functional health and harmony was lost. And so if we were going to do it again, we'd make sure that we allowed that autonomy to happen, but also having key milestones where we can allow our teams, our delivery, our design, and engineering to map out what the new process is together. And we do that earlier rather than tacking it on at the end. And focusing to self is hard. And it's not necessarily about the amount of work that you now need to do. It's about the intensity of the hours. So you kind of leave for a little bit of time there. You leave the 40 hours feeling a little bit more exhausted than it was traditionally. It's really exciting though. I came into this wanting something a little differently from growing an agency or growing a team, and we definitely got that. But this is a good time to protect your PTO, find a coach, look for your peers, not just for accountability, but for support as well. That's a small thing, but it's really important. All right. So more people, more pressure, more rigor around finance, particularly at a 240-person company. And I think one of the things that we navigated as we were doing this change is how do we define a board-level talk track and some of our core financial KPIs down to the team and through the rungs of leadership. I don't think that we got it right every time. And this little quote up here, it resonates with me. And it's an easy thing to know. I think we all know it, but to remind yourself of, which is finance isn't a purpose, it's a result. To have purpose means to do things to others that have real value. And kind of Nihal was talking about it a little bit. We're all here to drive value for our clients. And if you focus too much in one way or the other, focus too much on the business, it can breed the wrong culture internally. And I had a couple of examples. So in 2024, we had months where we missed or barely met our monthly financial goals. And sometimes early on, we navigated kind of distilling that down to the team almost one-to-one in a ritual like a monthly all hands. But when a team is going through massive change, it really doesn't paint the whole picture of purpose. It can be actually quite demotivating for the team, as you can expect. And then the other part was focusing on too much on a business's financial health can unintentionally shift the team into a company-first mindset. So if you're servicing clients, that can lead to a negative reaction for clients unintentionally, because really the focus and the shift should be on building ROI and building quality with the secondary review of looking at financial results. Finance is a result, it's not a purpose. It's always good to have that in our mind. And through this time, you're going to get stretched a little bit. If you have a calm week, make the most of it. So because another week is going to be, a harder week is going to be coming around the corner. And I put a couple of things here, which is a top-down, bottom-up approach. Sometimes we can fall, particularly in times of firefighting, we can fall on our leaders to be the ones that solve any issues and solve our firefighting. But ultimately, and particularly at scale, you're going to feel just how unsustainable that is. Having 10 accounts to having 50 to having 100, if you have 2 accounts that are going through an escalation and you fall on your leaders to solve them, this is going to burn, you're going to feel this very quickly. And the only true sustainable approach is to protect your leaders, but also to really focus on mechanisms that coach the team. And the core focus should be on allowing project teams, whatever that means to you, to be the ones that are ultimately able to autonomously solve everything themselves. The other part is, there will be some quality things that you will need to navigate through this phase. And so how do you bounce back? What can you do now to build out escalation SOPs on internal pitch decks that allow teams to navigate some of the more challenging aspects of a client relationship? Get ahead of it, and if you do, it can really pay off. If you can go through some churning or some storming with a client and you come out the other side, you can leave the account in a better place than where it was originally because you can show them the value of partnerships. And actually, really, we're only starting to truck on organic growth in 2025. So 2024 was a year of stabilizing, and that allowed us to get to start to shift up in organic scale now. So a little later. And this year, we've hired 30 people over the last 5 months, and so we're moving quite quickly. We've got a strong hiring and onboarding process. We build out custom ROI data insights dashboards. I personally love Retool, if anybody uses Retool, but it allows us to merge in data points from Jira, from Productive, from GitHub, to really get a taste of leading indicators for client health. We have, at any one time, about 6,000 active Jira tickets in motion, and so you can just imagine how pattern analysis starts to get at scale. Something that we've navigated is the idea of a rigorous process for flexibility, particularly at scale. If you're at scale and you've got a really well-defined process, which I think we do, it can lead to feeling like a lack of flexibility and autonomy for people in client-facing roles, which is not the case. It should be a playbook. It shouldn't be a dogma. If it's a dogma, the wrong decisions start to brew. And so really coaching the team on it as you introduce process is important. And consider some of the softer culture things. Again, at scale, if think like happy hours, giving thanks, recognition, celebrating launches, they don't happen as organically as they used to when the team is much smaller. And so focusing on how we do that in our monthly all hands, we reserve about the last 10 minutes just to allow the team to give thanks to one another. We have, at any one time, maybe 140 people on that core plus, but people really step in. Leadership guides it, and then teams really start to show recognition, and it's been quite powerful. All right, I'm going to move into plan, play, plan, and pivot. One of the things we did early on was we formed a new labs, so our R&D initiatives, and that allowed us to really use innovation to look forward than rather to look back. It also allowed teams from both sides of the merge to come together and be able to collaborate outside of the pressures of client work. It built a lot of internal motivation for the team, and having this idea of using innovation to guide what the future looks like is a really powerful tool that we would use again. I think that we did our marketing and brand launches really well. We focused on high impact in-person events. We launched our new brand, we launched Studio, we launched CRM. In 2025, we launched a 2-day in-person event with our clients and prospects to come together in New York City to really take away the agency as a middleman and allow our clients to be able to interact and share industry knowledge together. It also led to a lot of marketing material that was quite positive for us as well, and it's something that we're going to do again and again. And this is an example of kind of some strategic use of our marketing budget. Plan. So we scaled our leadership team overnight, and if you put 40 people, 40 directors into the same Slack channels and the same recurring meetings, you're not going to have the same results as you had before. And so we've now rolled out different leadership types. We've got a complete leadership framework to define what leadership means at Domaine. And what that has done is it allows you to be able to create more cross-functional, intimate silos to nurture back some of that natural collaboration at a leadership level that you felt when you were a smaller agency. Identify and protect what your value drivers are as you move through this transition. I kind of talked about losing sight of cross-functional while we focused on our functional silos. And something that we would have done a little earlier is we would have focused on some of the core cross-functional processes, ways of working, like our release cycles, like our QA strategies, things that involve a lot of team members, and really drill those home so that we can get ahead of any potential ambiguity. In this time, as you're changing things, ambiguity is the devil. Think about establishing a CFO and a people lead as early as possible. These are both roles, or your version of these roles, are deeply impactful, and they take a lot of time to find the right people. As you can see, we didn't make the right decision from the people side on day one. The thing that I learned about a CFO is that it's a deeply strategic role, and it touches every different function. It allows you to manage investor needs and financial goals with a really clear operational plan for every department. So it makes growth sustainable. And a people lead, as you're going through a time of change, is a really fantastic barometer to how the emotional side of the changes is going, and allows you to provide a pulse to your leadership, to your managers as you go through. And that's certainly one thing that you don't want to catch up on later. It's something that you really want to have a steady hand throughout the process. And if you can build and develop, and maybe you have it already, a really robust management playbook, it will help you get through this phase. Scaling headcount is a pretty intense period, and you're going to have to scale your management and leadership oversight in the same lockstep. And so if you have a really strong way to allow ICs to move up into people management, to really protect the culture of coaching up, it's going to benefit you long term, and you'll feel it when you don't have it. Looking ahead, I'm really excited today to say that we just launched our B2B practice at Domaine. We've launched it right now. We brought in 2 industry veterans, Brad Borman and Randy Higgins, to lead this. And for me, this is a really exciting thing. It kind of shows how growth turns into energy, it turns into momentum. This is probably our 4th release of a big bang here when we're developing a practice, and we can only do this because we've got such a good baseline. So this is kind of the thing that keeps me going. But anyway, I'm going to pause it there. I hope I did 20 minutes. Thanks for your time. Thanks.